Thank you for finding your way today to my channel, Travels with Bob LLC. As we know, the most entertaining cruise channel on the interwebs today. Today, I thought that I would try something that I've never done. As many YouTubers do, they provide information with regards to, especially cruise YouTubers, provide information based on what they find from other channels or other sources. In viewing a few other YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to, I was able to bring up a video that was done by Doug and Leah. They offer a site, Go Life Travel. What she did, or what they did, they delved deep into how tips are sorted out, who they cover, how it goes to, why the ships do it, how they do it, all of the intricacies of tipping for a cruise line. It is very, very informative. So what I've done, I reached out to them and asked for their permission to put it on my channel. They said yes, and so I am providing that for you today. It answers a lot of questions that a lot of cruisers have with regards to tips. Should I tip? Should I not tip? Should I tip additional tip? Why is tipping so prevalent on cruises? When you tip, who does it go to? Who behind the scenes gets it? Rules, regulations, and laws, all of that. I mean, they went pretty deep in looking at all of this stuff. So for today, please enjoy this video by Doug and Leah. Again, thank you, Doug and Leah, for allowing me the permission to post it on my channel. And also, for those of you unaware, please visit my Facebook page. I do have a cruise coming up March of next year that I'm still have a few rooms available for. So hit me up if you want to go to a cruise. We'll be visiting Cozumel, Costa Maya, and Belize City. And also, while you're on the cruise, make sure to look for some of my duckies. Oh, you can't see me, I'm invisible. And my favorite is I'm Bad Duck. Or I'm your quacker. Quacker. Okay, as always, love, peace, and hair grease. Please, if you like the channel, please like and subscribe. If you don't like it, tell a friend to like and subscribe. Okay. Love, peace, and hair grease. Get out and travel. Peace out.
Question worth sitting with before your next sailing. When you remove your cruise gratuities as a protest against the cruise line, who actually absorbs that loss? Here's the honest answer. It's not who you think. I'm Leah, Doug's behind the camera, and before this channel, I spent years as a senior executive managing global teams, people paid with a combination of base salary and variable pay. So when we started seeing remove your gratuities movement picking up momentum online, our first instinct wasn't to have an opinion, it was to do the research. 42 sources, corporate 10K filings, maritime labor contracts, collective bargaining agreements, crew discussions, board's passenger ticket contracts, and an interview with a former crew member that you must see, so hang tight. And what we found is more complicated and frankly more consequential for the crew than the social media posts suggest. Let's start with the basics. First, we want to thank those of you for asking the question in the first place. We do try to respond to questions that are happening out there in the travel world. A very quick note before we start, we do not work for or represent any cruise line. This research is entirely our own. We'll link to the primary resources in the description below, the 10K filings, etc. As we mentioned, there's a lot of them. But here's where we start, because before we get into how gratuities work, we need to address who this topic even applies to, and the answer might narrow it down more than you expect, coming up next. If you booked your cruise in Australia, New Zealand, or the United Kingdom, or other countries that require it, there's a reasonable chance this debate is already resolved for you. Laws in those markets often require that mandatory fees be included in the advertised fare. NCL, for example, explicitly includes service charges in the voyage fare for ANZ bookings made after July 1st, 2022. You can't remove something that isn't separate. If you're sailing a luxury line, Regent Seven Seas, Oceania, Silversea, Explorer Journeys, to name a few, gratuities are bundled into the base fare. It's designed as a transaction-free environment. Worth noting, even here, lines use something called non-commissionable fee accounting to unbundle that value in the background, partly to manage travel agent commissions. If you want more on this topic, see this video here about the cruise booking avenues. But from a passenger's perspective, it's taken care of. And if you booked a package like NCL's Free at Sea Plus, Princess Premier, Princess Plus, Holland Have It All Early Booking, just to name a few, your gratuities are prepaid as part of that bundle. Removing them typically means forfeiting the entire package and its benefits. So here's where we land. If you're in one of those buckets, this is useful context. If you are a US-based passenger on a contemporary line at a standard fare, your gratuities are usually adjustable, and that's who this video is for. Next up, 3 documents that govern how the crew actually gets paid, because this is where things start to get really interesting. There are 3 documents you need to understand. None of them are in the brochure. The first is the Maritime Labor Convention, or the MLC. Think of it as the Seafarers' Bill of Rights. It's an international treaty adopted by the International Labor Organization that sits alongside the major maritime regulations on safety, environmental protection, and crew training. What it establishes is a minimum floor for the working and living condition of seafarers worldwide. Under the MLC, every crew member must have a Seafarers Employment Agreement, a written, highly enforceable contract specifying their wages or the formula used to calculate them. It's not a guideline, it's a legal requirement. The second document is the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or the CBA. The MLC sets the mandate. The CBA contains the actual numbers, and the key section is Appendix 2, which is the wage grid by role. For 2024, Steward has a grand total monthly floor of $1,711. That figure includes basic pay plus 103 hours of guaranteed overtime. The contract language is explicit. These wages, quote, may not be decreased for the duration of the tour of duty, end quote. Even if every guest on a sailing removed their gratuities, the corporation is legally required to pay this floor. Union coverage isn't uniform across the industry. Royal Caribbean leads this. Approximately 87% of their 96,500 shipboard employees are covered by CBAs as of the end of 2025. Norwegian reports that the majority of their shipboard team operates under union negotiated programs. Carnival is at 48%. Nearly half of their 101,000 shipboard employees are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Carnival attributes this partly to sourcing crew from 150 different countries with its own internal compensation management system. The sources don't give a single definitive reason for that gap, so we're just reporting what's documented, not speculating. The third document is your passenger ticket contract. This defines the cruise fare as covering transportation, meals, accommodation, and it explicitly categorizes gratuities as, and this language matters, optional facilities or discretionary hotel and dining charges. It then states these fees are considered earned as those facilities and services are provided. That framing allows the cruise line to treat your gratuity as company revenue rather than the fixed portion of your fare. So we've established the legal floor. But here's the thing. The floor and what crew are actually promised when they're recruited are 2 different numbers. Stay with us because that gap is partly where your gratuity goes. The floor exists. Again, a steward is legally guaranteed $1,711 per month. The cruise line must pay it, full stop. But crew members are typically recruited with what's called a target salary, a number higher than the floor, say $2,200 a month versus that $1,711 guarantee. The gratuity pool helps fund that difference. That is its function, in addition to partially funding the base pay. When passengers pay their daily service charge, they are funding partly the required base and partly the gap between what the law requires the line to pay and what the line promised the crew they could earn. And it's a shared pool. Stateroom stewards, dining staff, behind the scenes crew like laundry and galley, some who never have direct guest interaction receive a portion. That's the equity mechanism. The person who makes your bed and the person who washed your tablecloths are drawing from that same pool. One nuance worth noting, certain specialist roles are often excluded. Butlers, concierge, and are frequently outside that shared pool. They rely on individual tips for their incentive pay. Celebrity Cruises does include their butlers in the shared pool, but many don't. It's worth knowing before you assume your butler's envelope covers the whole picture. Also note on bartenders and bar staff, they typically are receiving your tips when you purchase drinks and drink packages, and those go into the bar staff pool and split accordingly. The difference is that these typically cannot be removed, and the percent is mandated by the cruise. Anything extra you give is extra. To summarize where we are, the floor is legally protected, the target is not. The gratuity pool is what gets crew to their target. When it shrinks, everyone in that pool feels it. Now here's where it gets interesting from a corporate finance angle, because the cruise lines are not simply neutral administration of this system. We focused on the big three, so Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian all file 10K reports with the SEC. These are public documents, and they reveal something the casual gratuity conversation tends to skip over. Gratuities are classified on these balance sheets as passenger ticket revenue, not a pass-through to employees revenue, and that revenue is then applied to offset the line's payroll and related expenses. Our take is that this is similar to what happens in the U.S. restaurant industry, where federal law allows tipped workers to be paid as little as $2.13 an hour because tips are assumed to make up the difference. We believe this concept is similar. Tips become a structural subsidy for the employer's payroll obligation. American cruisers who've debated this in domestic restaurants are now debating a version of a similar system at sea. And here's the downstream consequence worth considering. Contemporary lines keep gratuities adjustable in part because it lets them advertise lower base fares. If removal scales to a level that disrupts that model, the likely corporate response is exactly what the luxury lines already do: bundle the fee into the fare, make it non-removable, and raise the advertised price. The adjustable model, for better or worse, depends on a critical mass of passengers keeping the charge in place. I also want to point out that there are tax ramifications for the cruise lines to their benefit to keep receiving that revenue as shipping revenue. Just note that. One more layer before we get to crew impact, and it's one the outside research can't fully crack. Detailed compensation formulas are difficult to confirm because they are treated as a competitive advantage. Crew members are frequently bound by non-disclosure agreements prohibiting them from sharing specific payout structures publicly. This is a standard practice in industries where compensation is a recruiting tool, not conspiracy, just business. It does mean we're working with what's been documented in legal filings, union contracts, and public statements. We want to be transparent about the limits of what outside research can confirm. The system is, by design, not fully visible. In my former role as a leader in tech companies, we would not have disclosed our compensation externally either. We used our programs as a competitive advantage, often providing creative incentives to drive certain behaviors in business. I personally do not feel there is a conspiracy here, but I do believe the cruise lines could be more forthcoming here. So we met someone that we think you'll find interesting. Her name is Tintin, and we're going to let her introduce herself and give you a bit of her experience in the cruise world. We asked her some questions. Stay tuned though, because there's two parts to this.
I'd like to thank Dog and Leia for inviting me to be part of the discussion. A little bit about me. I worked for Royal Caribbean International for 10 years in the bar department. I started as a bar server, was promoted to senior bar server. And during my years on board, I had the opportunity to work alongside crew members from many different departments, including housekeeping, dining, and other hotel operations. Today, I run a YouTube channel where I help aspiring cruise ship crew members prepare for a career at sea. I create videos about the application process, interviews, resume tips, salary expectation, and I also share my own experiences from working on board. My goal is to help people better understand what life and work on a cruise ship are really like. When Dog and Leia asked me about automatic gratuities and how they affect crew members, I didn't want to answer based on assumption. Although I spent 10 years on board, my experience was in the bar department, not housekeeping. So instead of guessing, I reached out to a friend who is currently connected with Royal Caribbean to verify how the system works today. Based on the information I received, Royal Caribbean still use a gratuity-based compensation system for stateroom attendants. This means that automatic daily gratuities remain an important part of their overall compensation, rather than everyone simply receiving a fixed monthly salary. For comparison, I also have a friend working with Oceanic Cruises. Their system is different because they receive a fixed monthly salary. According to my friend, a junior cabin steward earns approximately $1,900 per month, while a senior cabin steward earns around $2,600 per month. This shows that compensation system can vary from one cruise line to another. From my own experience in Royal Caribbean Bar Department, gratuities were also an important part of our compensation. We received a percentage of the beverage sales, and if a guest gave us additional cash tips, those went directly to us. So I understand firsthand how meaningful gratuities are to crew members. One of the biggest questions guests ask is whether paying the automatic daily gratuities really makes a difference. Based on what I confirm, the answer is yes. The automatic gratuities contribute to the compensation of many hardworking crew members, including dining staff, stateroom attendants, and many behind the scenes employees. When the majority of guests leave those gratuities in place, it helps support the compensation system that these crew members rely on. On the other hand, when guests remove the automatic gratuities without a legitimate service issue, it can reduce the gratuity pool that helps compensate these crew members. These men and women work incredibly hard, often 7 days a week, with long hours to make sure guests have a wonderful vacation from the moment they board until they return home. My personal advice is this: if you receive a good service during your cruise, I encourage you to leave the automatic gratuities in place. They are there to recognize the dedication and hard work of the crew members who help create a memorable vacation experience. If someone has gone above and beyond to make your trip extra special, you can always give them additional cash tip as a personal thank you. Dog and Leia, thank you again for inviting me to contribute this conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to help explain how this system works from a crew member's perspective. And if you're interested in learning more about cruise ship careers, salaries, and interviews, or how to apply for a cruise ship job, feel free to visit my YouTube channel. I regularly share tips and advice to help future crew members begin their journey at sea. Thank you so much for watching.
So thank you, Tintin, for that. I want to make a really quick point that she called out Oceania versus Royal Caribbean, and that reiterates the point we told you earlier about the luxury lines including gratuities in their base fares now, so that is how they are compensated versus that pool. Second, we had more questions, so I asked her two more points. The first, I wanted to know if everyone paid their automatic gratuity, does that increase the compensation of the staff? And second, I wanted to understand a little bit more about if the automatic gratuities are removed from a Royal Caribbean cruise, does that negatively impact either the performance review or the upward mobility advancements of that crew member? Over to you, Tintin.
I wanted to add one important clarification after following up with current Royal Caribbean crew member to make sure the information I shared was as accurate as possible. One of the biggest questions was whether automatic gratuities actually affect a crew member compensation. Based on the information shared with me, the answer is yes. For Royal Caribbean, stateroom attendants gratuities are their primary source of compensation during normal ship operation. They do not receive a fixed monthly salary in the same way that some other cruise lines do. A guaranteed salary only applies in certain situations, such as when the ship is not operating, for example, during dry dock. Because of this, if guests remove the automatic gratuities, it can reduce the crew members' overall compensation because gratuities make up the majority of their earnings while the ship is operating. My contact also shared that there are different reasons why some guests remove automatic gratuities. Some first time cruisers simply don't realize how the system works and assume gratuities are already included in the cruise fare. Others choose to remove them for personal reasons. At the same time, many guests are incredibly generous. Many leave the automatic gratuities in place, and some even choose to give additional cash tips as a way of recognizing exceptional service. Crew members are always grateful for that generosity because gratuities are an important part of their income. I also wanted to clarify another questions that came up. Does removing automatic gratuities affect a crew member's performance, evaluations, or promotions opportunities? Based on the information shared with me by my Royal Caribbean contact, it does not. Performance evaluations are based on factors such as guest complaints, guest feedback, work performance, attitude, and professionalism. Supervisors work closely with their teams and know how each other crew member performs. So, removing automatic gratuities is not used as a measure of an employee performance. I hope this clarification helps everyone better understand how the gratuity system works for Royal Caribbean crew members. Of course, compensation system can vary from one cruise line to another. So this information is specific to what was shared with me regarding Royal Caribbean.
Tintin, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to help us research this. It's been an ongoing process for a few weeks now, and we thank you. We will also, for the rest of you, put the links to Tintin's YouTube channel. As she suggested earlier, if you have interest in keeping up on what's going on with cruise positions and hiring, she's your lady. Now let's move on to crew impact. Let's talk about what actually happens when a cabin removes the gratuity, because this is where it gets personal. Removing an automatic gratuity is not an anonymous act. Guest Services tracks removals by cabin. John Held, who's Carnival's brand ambassador, has publicly confirmed that department heads are notified to investigate whether a service failure occurred when a removal is logged. If no service failure is found, the removal is described in his words as baffling to management, and it can result in a negative performance note on the crew member's record. Not a documented complaint about something they did wrong, a performance mark for something they didn't do. Accounts across crew discussion boards are consistent. While the union floor protects base pay, a removal directly reduces the incentive pay they were recruited with. And crew members are, in language we found across multiple sources, overwhelmingly aware of which cabins remove the charge. When large numbers of a specific dining room section or cabin group under the same steward remove gratuities, we are showing you the comments from crew as to how it affects their reviews, promotion opportunities, etc. We want to say this clearly. We're not trying to create anxiety. It's simply what the data shows. Now, what about the workaround that comes up most often? Cash. A common approach: remove the auto charge and give cash directly. Cut out the corporate middleman per se, and on the surface, this feels like a cleaner solution. But here's the honest answer on that. Some crew contracts require that cash tips be declared and pooled, treated the same as the automatic charge. If a cabin has specifically removed the gratuity and the cabin steward is given cash, he or she might be required to report this so it can be placed in the pool to replace what would have been the automatic gratuity. Keeping undeclared cash is a terminable offense in some lines. Those have suggested slyly delivering cash. Those folks live with 3 other crew members generally and in an onboard account, which would have to make a deposit, so it potentially puts them in an extremely awkward position. With that said, though, Carnival has noted that individual staff can keep cash tips. Holland America reportedly enforces much stricter reporting requirements. The rules are not uniform. The crew member has no say in how their specific contract is enforced. The give cash instead intention is well placed, but the risk it creates is potentially for the crew member, not for you. So here's where we land. We went in with 42 sources and no predetermined conclusion. This is what the data and our interview supports. Choose to keep your auto gratuities if your service has been at the level you expected or better. What you're funding is not a corporate windfall. It's the difference between the legal floor the line must pay and the target earnings the crew was promised. It's the galley crew and the laundry team who maintained your space and will never receive a cash envelope from you. And it shields the visible crew from a management investigation they do not deserve. But choose to adjust or remove if you experience a documented service failure. This is the mechanism that exists for exactly this. Go to guest services, log it. That feedback creates a paper trail the line needs. And our feeling is this is the appropriate use of the tool. Extra cash for exceptional individual service, a real appreciated gesture. Just know that on many lines, the crew member's contract requires them to declare it and pool it. What they can keep depends on their specific line's policy. A practical note for managing the cost. Some booking structures already work in your favor. Holland America's Have It All Early Book and often includes gratuities, as we've mentioned. Princess Plus, Princess Premier include them, NCL's Free at Sea Plus, to name a few. If you're looking to reduce the out-of-pocket impact, booking a package that bundles gratuities around things you'd spend anyway is a smarter lever than removing them on board. And we'll say this briefly on U.S. tipping culture because we know it carries a lot of weight. The cruise gratuity system, in our opinion, mirrors the American tip wage model more than most passengers realize. It is a subsidy structure that is not the crew's decision. They are working within a system they didn't build. If this topic raised more questions, I'm sure it did, or if you're part of a cruise crew and you have a perspective we should know about, drop it in the comments. We do read every single one. If your experience contradicts what we've laid out here, we want to hear it. That's the kind of community we're building. Healthy dialogue, bring it. Links to all the primary sources are in the description below if you want to do a deep dive on your own. If you like our data-driven and detailed approach to the cruise world, a subscribe goes a long way. It makes a real difference for our channel our size. Details, not drama. See you then. Thanks for watching.